Without further ado, I think we're going to dive right into it. Just to set the agenda for today, we're really going to spend the majority of our time talking about the results of our survey of students. We're going to talk about the impact that disconnected operations or disconnected academic operations can have on students. And then we're going to talk about how integrating these operations, one of these ways, obviously, with this tool is with a tool like Coursedog, but more broadly, we're going to speak to how the data suggests that integrating together our academic operations can help to enroll and graduate more students. And then we'll leave the end for any Q&A. But again, we prefer to keep this interactive as we go along. Amazing. So I'm just going to get started. For those of you that don't know me, I see we have quite a few of our partners who are in the audience. I see we have some new faces. My name is Justin Wenig. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Coursedog. My story is that about 3.5 years ago, I was a computer science student at Columbia University who got frustrated while trying to enroll in the classes I wanted to take. At Columbia, like many institutions, there wasn't always, a really strong sense of what students' demand would be for classes. Oftentimes, a lot of classes were bundled up in certain prime time hours. And we're really going to be talking about, while I had this experience as a Columbia University student, what is the experience when students go and they try to get into a class they need to take, they interact with the course catalog, they try to build their schedule. How does that experience actually impact your institution's graduation and retention rates? And how does that impact students? So a little bit about this survey. We had over 400 students that were surveyed as a part of this survey. More than 60% were from four-year universities. And these interviews were collected from June to July of 2021. And really, the topic of these different surveys were, what is the impact of academic operations, which we'll define as all of the business processes that are associated with proposing classes, scheduling classes, publishing classes, students planning their schedules. How do all of these often disconnected processes, I go and I update a catalog, and then I have to go update my SIS, or I update my schedule, then I need to update 3 different systems. How do these disconnected workflows ultimately impact students? And, fundamentally, what we believe here at Coursedog, before we dive into the survey, is that siloed operations negatively impact the enrollment and retention of students. If we're building our class schedule and we don't have a good sense of course demand, or we aren't able to benchmark ourselves against how other institutions distribute their schedule, or we're not making good use of our instructional resources, and we don't have good data, that can create real challenges for students. When we have siloed technology, some institutions, they have a scheduling tool, and then they have a catalog tool, and then they have a planner tool. When we have this siloed technology, that's the way it's always been done mentality, it often results in a really inefficient use of resources. And, administrators, higher education administrators end up doing more manual duplicate data entry than actually taking a step back and saying, hey, how does this actually impact our students? And then last but not least, when we have shrinking resources, there are shifting goalposts, right? We all know oftentimes we're dealing with fewer people, smaller budgets, more complex scenarios, more competitive landscape. And if we're doing all these tasks in a manual, disjointed way, it just makes it harder for us to really put the student at the forefront of these interactions. So let's talk about what the impact of siloed academic operations are on students and what our student survey unveiled. So we've included a lot of different data in this survey, and we're going to walk through some of it, but as we go through, feel free to submit questions through the chat. So, just first and foremost, according to Hanover Research, only about 45% of our students graduate nationwide in the United States. And what we found from our survey is that 81% of students, again, of that 400 plus students surveyed, 60% plus from four-year institutions, 81% of them were unable to get into a class they needed to graduate in one time in their degree path. What does this mean? Well, when students aren't able to get into a class they need to graduate, sometimes it actually results in delaying their graduation, right? They need to pay for another semester of tuition. More often, though, it's just a way that we end up impacting the student's degree velocity. So we're making it harder for the student to go on that path, and we're creating friction for them to get to that next step in their academic plan or degree. And, just to give you a quote, one of our students that we surveyed suggested, there's always been a lot of stress surrounding enrollment day in Windows, often caused by dated technologies, as well as the need to enroll students in classes in the first 30 seconds before they fill up. Most of us are familiar with how crazy enrollment can get, but I think sometimes we zoom out at the student experience of this, right? And not only is registration a stressful time for these students, but it gets even more stressful when they really need to get into classes that they need to graduate or classes that are really important to their degree path. So another survey is, looking at students that we surveyed that actually had some kind of delay in graduation. 28% of those students reported that class availability was a contributing factor to a delay in their graduation. And so I think sometimes we think, well, as long as they can eventually take a class, or, hey, maybe Chem 101 and Bio 101 are going to be at 2 p.m. this semester, but they can sequence them in different semesters. What students are telling us is that class availability can have an impact and contribute to a delay in graduation. And of those 28% of students that suggested that class availability, had an impact or delayed their graduation, there were a couple of different reasons why. 18% reported that a class they needed was full. 10% reported that the class was dropped after they enrolled. And 21% said that they weren't advised to take it until they were too late. So I think these all should look familiar to us. Sometimes the problem is demand. Sometimes the problem is advisor interactions. Sometimes the problem is actually that classes get cut after the student was enrolled. But I think this is useful data just for us to understand that all of these different little things can actually have a really big impact on students' on-time graduation. One that was really interesting was that only 11% of students that we surveyed agreed with the statement, my university or college offered the classes that I needed in order to graduate at times that allowed me to take them. And I thought this was pretty shocking. For only 11% of students to actually say this statement, and I'll say that just digging into the data, a lot of these institutions where the students said more positive things were using a platform like Coursedog. But it's kind of shocking to me that, not only do only 11% of students believe in this statement, but just from my interactions, Coursedog, working with folks like registrars, VPAAs, provosts, in terms of building schedule and curriculum plans, how often are we actually thinking about this problem? How often are we thinking about that, the way that we actually, not just time blocks, but distribute our schedule might have an impact on the student experience and their on-time graduation. And I just think that's a very interesting one right here. So what do students say about this? They say the tech wasn't terrible. It was the lack of availability of classes that really hurt the overall student education experience. So it's not only about having a nice way for students to plan. It's not only about, having your registration portal be able to handle enough registrations on time, or having a room scheduling solution to make your rooms, fit. what this is suggesting is that one of the biggest things that frustrates students is class availability. So, another one that was really interesting here. So nearly 90% of surveyed students relied on course catalogs to understand classes they need to take. And more than 40% reported that their decision to enroll in their school was based on academic programs and course offerings. What does this say? Well, I think first and foremost, whether the folks who are here have some sort of a digital catalog solution or they don't, I can tell you without a doubt that 90% of universities are thinking about their catalog as a solution for accreditors. They're thinking about it as something that just needs to go out because we need to have it out and it needs to be accurate, and accuracy is all that matters. But let me tell you that what this data says is that this is having a huge impact on the student experience, on what they actually choose, on their educational path, right? And as many institutions implement, planners or, better course searches or whatever, they're still using the catalog, right? And that's what the students are telling us. And I think it's pretty interesting that, many institutions, they're rolling over the same old schedule from semester to semester, right? So many institutions, they just roll over, right? But consider that 40% of students say that their decision to enroll was based as in like, this was the reason why I enrolled on these academic programs and course offerings. This is the heartbeat of our campus, right? And I think in a post-COVID world, a lot of folks are realizing, hey, it's not just about the same old way we did things. Maybe we should have some sort of operational visibility or reporting to make sure that we're not offering 12 sections of something that a student doesn't actually need or want. By the way, feel free to ask questions, share concerns. We are, there's a lot of data that's in this survey that I think is really interesting. So what do students say? So they say, good quote that we pulled out, in most cases, the degree programs were managed separate from the entire class catalog. This meant students had to go back and forth between pages to figure out which classes they needed to take to graduate, and then also figure out which classes were offered in a given term. This ultimately made it difficult when planning each semester. So an interesting stat that I just wanted to call out that I thought was really, not only this, but when I go and I talk to students, or when I talk with folks who are recent graduates, I myself am included because I started Coursedog out of college. They unanimously tell me when they ask, hey, how did the administration support you? How did your, registrar or your VPAA or your provost support you? This is the problem that they talk about the most. That it was so hard to just get into the classes they wanted to take and understand what they needed to take. Cool. So some other data points, and we're going to zoom through the rest, and then we're going to talk about some solutions, whether they're Coursedog or without Coursedog. But about 29% of surveyed students who didn't graduate or were delayed attributed it to a lack of up-to-date accessible information on degree requirements. So despite our best efforts with the catalog and whatever tools we have, this is still a problem. And 35% of students indicated that finding the academic programs or courses offered at their prospective school was not easy. Students say, I felt like it was always a struggle to get into my non-major related classes because we were a small university. I relied on my friends to know what to take during each semester. So now that we've seen some of this data, I'd love to talk a little bit about how integrated academic operations can help. So, just to give you a sense, what we found is that 80% of respondents indicated that if a school they are considering attending promoted its easy-to-use software and tools on campus, it would have an impact on their decision on attending one institution over another. And so what we fundamentally believe here at Coursedog is that what campuses need are what we call integrated academic operations. We can't have our administrators spending all of their time when I go and I update a course, updating it in the SIS, updating the requisites in your degree audit, updating the class in the class schedule, updating your rooms. We can't have that because it prevents our folks from being able to be above the fold and being able to report and understand, how is this process actually working for our students? And is it improving our enrollment, improving our retention, helping folks to graduate on time? So here at Coursedog, what we offer is the industry's first platform that integrates together all of these silos. So we take, what traditionally is a PDF catalog or a digital catalog, and then a separate scheduling solution, and then separate reporting tools, and then some sort of student experience or planner. And we pull it together all into one integrated experience that fully integrates with the student information system. Our vision is to be your single platform and your single consultant that works with you to operationalize and improve these processes. That involves everything from proposing new courses and programs based on student demand, forecasting your programs and your course demand, scheduling your times and your rooms optimally, and distributing the schedule effectively so that students can get into the classes they need to take, and the online catalog and search experience that enables students to be able to seamlessly access their degree requirements and graduate on time. And so some of the ways that we suggest doing this, first is really to help you to analyze and act with what we call this integrated academic reporting, right? Giving you visibility into course demand, forecasting, attempted student credit hours, how it changes over time. Let's make sure that before we roll over the same broken schedule, that we know for a fact this class is going to be overfilled or underutilized, and that we're using our schedule efficiently. We also do this with real-time reporting to identify bottlenecks. If during registration a class is filled to the brim, we can automatically notify the correct people. You can report on this data in advance to make sure that students have class availability. We even can incorporate students' degree audit information and student surveys to understand, how are we actually making sure that we're offering the classes that students need to take. And last but not least, we provide a single integrated planner and catalog solution with integrated analytics to help students to navigate and explore their degree path. And we even can pull in this data to understand, hey, based on what students are looking at, how is demand trending? What are the programs or the courses that students are really interested in? Can we even recommend or serve them up courses that are along their degree path or on their degree map to make it easier for them? And so by integrating together all these silos, the way we think about this is strategic enrollment management is holistic, and your academic operations should be too. We need to think about how to create a student-centric experience, how to be data-driven, how to use good technology, and how to break down barriers so we have one single integrated system to make sure that we're doing the best we can for our students. Awesome. So we've got an awesome attendance in the crowd today. I want to use the rest of our time to answer any questions that folks may have about the survey, and really to answer any questions about how we think about why integrating together these tools is so important. We might have a shy audience today. Going once, going twice. Well, thank you everyone so much for joining us. If you're interested in taking a look at a demonstration of the capabilities of Coursedog and how almost 100 other campuses like the City University New York system, Stanford, Columbia University, and other institutions have used our software and consulting services to integrate these silos, please feel free to reach out to me directly. Feel free to contact our sales team. I'll put my email in the chat. But thank you everyone so much for joining, and I hope this was helpful. Bye, everyone.